So it was my friend who found it. And then I think just listening to it, there was the level of like relatability. And there was only one other person who I feel like which is kind of crazy, but like who I've met in this life that kind of mirrored back my life experience. So I think it was a year after I lost my mom. So I was 30 when she passed away. And I just felt like I was orphaned because like no one tells you like what it's like to, and it's not that I wasn't an adult. Like I had lived in San Francisco for 6 years. Like I had lived away from family, but like the little kid within you is like, wait, my shelter is gone, my home is
Hmm.
gone. Like
Yeah.
no one told me how I'm supposed to respond to the world now that this person isn't here. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I felt very alone. I felt very isolated. And majority of my friends' parents, so like naturally you look out to your community to see if like anyone like is like you. And
Mhm.
some of my friends, like they still have both their parents. So then you have this extra level of like, well, am I not like them? I am, we're friends, but they might not get this because they've never experienced this,
Mhm.
right? Or some have even lost like one parent, but like no one around me has lost two. So I'm like, what's
Mhm.
the guidebook? Like, I don't have the guidebook. And like, as a program manager, I'm like, what's the next step we're supposed to take?
Yeah. And then you realize that there isn't a guidebook for that, and it's like you have to just like figure it out. That's the only way I can ever explain it to. I mean, you understand it, but like trying to explain to people, it's like no, you have to just like figure it out.
Well, I think listening to your episode and the way that you like relate to yourself when like the way that you feel about grief, right? Like I was listening to the podcast where we were talking about like thinking of your daughter and
Mhm.
how like you're thinking about how like your parents will like never meet your daughter. And these are such real experiences that I have even about like getting married. Like I'm not married yet, but it's like you get flooded with the visual of what's not
Mhm.
going to be there. And a part of me has typically fought that. And I've gotten upset because I'm like, why is this here? Like, this isn't fair. And I think when I listen to you and the way that you experienced it, it's almost like you have a greater level of openness and allowance to the space of like, this is going to be a part of the journey. Like, I'm here. I allowed this. That, like, after I listened to that episode, I was like, gosh, like, I have the ability to really take this as a gift because I
Mhm.
do believe that after you experience the loss of something like you did, like with your parents, you had this moment in time where you're looking at your daughter and you're realizing the people that you love aren't going to be there, but they matter so much to you that your body's remembering them and you're having like the thoughts about them. And what's interesting is people who still have both their parents alive don't usually pause to ever think about that
No.
and they're never
No.
confronted with it. So they're usually going through life being like, "Oh, that's my, like, mom," or, like, "That's
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
dad," and, like, "Here we
Yeah.
go, and you're annoying me." So when I heard you
Yeah.
say that, I was like, I am given a gift that I'm gonna have these moments and these reflections, and it's because I was loved, and it's because I can actually visualize the love that I was given, and, like, what an amazing place that is to be.
Which is really interesting because I would say that I am more like you, which is really funny because I would never think. My wife has been telling me for years, you should start a podcast, but like not about grief. She was like, you should, because I'm a big tech guy, so like I have a lot of technology and I love. So she's like, do a tech podcast, and I was like, there's so many of those. Like I don't want to do that. And
Yeah.
she's like, no, you'd be great. And I was like, and literally this like it's so funny because this happened. When did I launch this? Like over a month ago. I literally came downstairs on a Sunday morning and I was like, what if I started like an Instagram account and it was just called it would be called I might still do it honestly, but it would be called voicemails that they'll never hear. And it would just be me recording, like I would just like record things that I want to say to my parents. And then I would just put it into like a voicemail and it would just like I was like, I'll just what if I could just do that? And like that's my outlet. And she's like, I think that's a really great idea. And then like 5 hours later, I came downstairs and I was like, wait, what if I did a podcast? And she's like, you should do a podcast. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And that night I was all hyped up. I'm like, I'm going to do a podcast. It's going to be amazing. Monday morning comes and I'm like, what am I doing? I can't start a podcast. I don't know what I'm doing. And then Monday I started writing like my script of like, this is what I want to say and how I want to say it. And I gave it to her and she was like, "This is really good, but if you expect your guests to go deeper, then you need to go deep." She's like, "The bones are there." Like I said in my show, I was like, "The bones are there," but she was like, "If you want them to be vulnerable as you are and like really get to like what their grief is, then you need to go deeper." And I was like, "Okay." And then I went back and I was like, "Okay, let me just pour everything out as I possibly can." And then even like on the second episode, I talked a lot about that of like, yeah, like the moments that like you'll never get back with your parents. But what you had said was sometimes like your friends will have like both parents or they have one parent or whatever, and they're like, "Oh man, my parents are so annoying," or "Oh, I have to call my parents. I don't want to do that." And you're like, "Dude, if you only you knew like what you have." Because like every day I like reach for my phone to call them and I can't, and you have the luxury to do that, but you don't even realize that you have that luxury.
Yeah, it's
Isn't that
so
crazy?
it is, but there's also the reverse to this too. So I like my core group of girlfriends that I'm surrounded by, they're just like amazing individuals. And we look at these things as a luxury, right? Because we realize that that doesn't exist anymore. And there's been sometimes I've actually gotten a little stuck, like mentally on something where like I'm complaining, or like I said to my friend Lisa, I was just like I was really like upset the one day and she's like, "Why are you upset?" And I'm like, "It's because I'm not supported. Like I don't
Right.
feel supported." And it's like that word support just has like a whole big connotation underneath it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um I was like, I just feel like if my mom was here, this would be so much easier. And she looked at me and she was like, Beck, she's like, even if she was, it might not be easier. She's like, I didn't grow up with emotionally available parents. And so
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
my God. So like I didn't realize somehow we romanticize, like, which is such a normal, natural thing to do. Like when you're grieving
Sure.
someone of like, well, if they were just here, like I would feel better. And like you you don't know. You don't know if maybe if you had that conversation with them because like there are parents and they're a different generation, they wouldn't be able to relate at the level and the speed that we're going. But we naturally think that because we love them, like they would
Right.
be able to. So
Yeah.
it's been amazing to actually be around some of my friends sometimes who kind of like gut check me, where I'm just like, well, if my parents were here, I'd have this, or like I wouldn't be such a like a deficit. So like mentally, sometimes I created myself to have a deficit because like I don't have both my parents, but other people do. Like I did this in my last
Yeah.
relationship where I'm like, you have everything. Like both of your parents are still here. Like you don't know what it's like for me, right? And you can like totally fight on like that side of the street as long as you want. Um, but it's interesting when you like pull back for a second and realize that not everyone is also still getting all of their needs met in
Mhm.
relationships with their parents.
Yeah.
Um, and that to me is truly the reality sometimes, but that does not take away from the necessity of like wanting these people that you
Yeah.
literally came from their bodies and
Mhm.
now they don't exist
Yeah.
in this.
Yeah. Isn't that so crazy?
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. It's interesting too that you were gonna create that Instagram. So I need to ask you, like, why you're okay positioning an entire podcast around grief, because I decided to create an Instagram because I wanted to give people the space to share something very similar as you. I actually have the Instagram called Words Left Unsaid, and it's the
Oh man.
opportunity for people
Yeah.
to share the things like you're saying you
Yeah.
wanna pick up the phone, or like if they just had one more day, this is what I want them to know, and you feel burdened by the weight of not being able to carry that conversation. So I actually wanted to be on the receiving end to witness and watch someone tell me or tell themselves or tell a space like these are the words left unsaid, because sometimes the words are even like I'm sorry,
Yeah.
right? And like I want that person to feel freed from whatever that is and to like know that like they're not alone. But I every time I'm about to like do the thing, I'm like, I don't want to position myself not behind grief, but I don't want to lead with grief. So I'm very curious like why you chose that.
The podcast or like why I would want to do an Instagram or
Like
both?
both.
Yeah. I mean, I think like I, I mean, I talk about this on a couple of the episodes is that like when my dad died when I was 15, so he was my only parent like, and my sisters are older than me, and it's actually really interesting because me and my sisters don't even have a relationship anymore. Like, and we also were never really close, even as kids. So I always kind of just felt like I was alone. But I think for me, like, probably never really dealt with that kind of trauma in my life. Like, I never dealt with the trauma of like losing a parent at 15, and then I also had to like grow up really fast. So I don't know if you had the same experience, but like my dad was our sole provider, and then I went and lived with my grandparents, and they had already raised their kids. So like they were in their 60s and they're taking on a 15-year-old. And so I remember like I was on my own when I was like 17. I lived in a house. I rented a room. I lived by myself. I went to community college, but like I went and got like a job, and I never really got to do the things that like people in like their 20s do. I never had like the college life experience, and my whole like upbringing past 15 was like I need to just take care of myself. And so I never really like dealt with my emotions, never really talked about them. And like when my mom passed away, I talked about it as well on the first or the second episode, but I never went to her funeral because we had like a falling out, and I regret that all the time. And so I went and did talk therapy. My wife was like, "I think it'd be really great for you to like try talk therapy." And I was like, "Sure, like why not?" And so I went and I found this woman. Her name is Nancy, and she is just like the nicest woman in the world. And when I met her and I would tell her my story, like she would like be crying because of like how much hurt there is, that like how much hurt and like abandonment there is in like that life. And so I don't know, I don't think that like validated it for me, but I would say like the talk therapy helped me with the uncomfortableness of it, and then a lot of it after that was like I would just use sarcasm to like make a joke. And so like people would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna call my mom." I'm like, "Oh, good for you, like my mom's dead," or like I would just like make a joke, like because they're still hurt and I'm just covering it with like sarcasm, right? And so I don't know, I think it just kind of came to me where I was like, there has to be more people in this world. There really are, that are living the same thing. Like, and you're like, what you had said was you felt like this is like a gift, and I feel that there's a lot of things that have happened in my life that I could look back at now and be like, that is like a testament of like something that I went through, so that maybe I could use that with somebody else. So like for example, my grandparents took me in and they finished raising me. My grandparents were like everything to me. Even growing up, like I've spent so much time with my grandparents. My grandmother, they still lived in New York, and I had lived in Charlotte. And they, on my wedding day, I found out on my wedding day, I would call my grandma every day, and I would call her every single day. We would talk all the time, and I called her on my wedding day as I was driving up a mountain. We were eloped in the mountains in North Carolina, and I remember calling the nursing home, and she just wouldn't. They didn't pick up, and I was like, "That's so weird. Like maybe they're just busy." And so I didn't get to talk to her. But then like we were coming back from our honeymoon. We went to Charleston for our honeymoon, and I remember calling, and somebody picked up, and I was like, "Hi, like I'm here to talk to Clem Delfave." And they were like, are you family?" I said, "Yeah, I'm family. I'm their grandson." They're like, "Oh, you should probably call another family member." And I said, "Oh." And I said, "Okay, thank you." And I hung up, and I was driving, and I looked at my wife, and I was like, "I think my grandma died." And so I ended up calling my grandparent, my uncle, and they were like, "Yeah, like you like grandma died." And then 5 days later, my grandfather died from broken heart syndrome. So I've dealt with like a lot of death. On top of all of this, I was married when I was 22. And we were married for 5 years, and we moved to Charlotte together, and then we ended up divorcing. So like I had gone through like a divorce, abandonment. I lost both my parents. I lost my grandparents. And so I always kind of felt like, oh, I'm a victim to this. But
Yeah.
now I looked at it like what a platform this could be to like help other people. Even if they don't come on my show, it's like a conversation of like, okay, well, I'm having conversations with Becca. I'm having conversations with my friend John. I just talked to a grief counselor yesterday on the show. And so like, I don't know, it's so niche, but I'm like,
Yeah.
there has to be somebody out there that would listen to this and like hear that it's okay to feel what you're feeling, and that, like, you're not alone, really. So that's a long-winded answer. I apologize.
I absolutely love all of it.
Yes.
So, it's like all of it is very relatable and, like, it makes sense, and I think what's really tough and, like, you could probably do an entire episode on, like, heartbreak with death because those 2 things I think, like, trigger each other because 'cause I've gone
Yes.
through my share of breakups as well, and usually it, like, stirs up a whole 'nother thing. But the one thing I will say is you're not alone. Like, I think that's the thing that most resonated with me when I was listening is that, like, I finally felt like I wasn't alone. So I hope that you feel that in my response that,
Oh,
like,
for sure. No, I do.
and, like, at a minimum, there's 2 people in this world that are 35 that lost both their
Yes.
parents, and, like,
Yes. Yeah.
the year after I lost my mom, I decided to go to a grief group because the way that I have a stepdad and I have an older sister, and, like, they just were dealing with grief in a very different way. Like, I thought if I just get it out and if I just talk about it, then, like, I can run through it. Right? Like, this is like the efficiency game. Like, if I talk about it, I can heal through it faster. Here we go. And, like, they didn't always wanna talk about it. And, like, my sister has 2 kids. Like, it's not the place she always would wanna bring that to. So, right, like, and so I felt isolated and alone that the person closest to me, which is truly my sister, like, I can't experience this with her too. Even though we've gone through not the same experience, we had 2 different
Yeah.
experiences with, like,
Yeah.
but, like, I did go to this, like, grief group because I think it was my sister's husband who recommended it, and I was starting to see advertisements for it, so, like, thank the algorithm, and I went, and everyone was, like, older than me except for one person, which was also fine, but I remember this one woman there, I finally had, like, shared, like, I got the words out of, like, I feel orphaned and, like, I feel abandoned, right? This woman looked at me and was like, "Oh, I feel so bad for you, like, you have the worst story here."
Oh my
And
gosh.
that, like, pissed me off
Yeah.
because I'm like I'm in my mind, like, and she meant nothing by it, right? Like,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
she wanted to be sympathetic, she wanted to be empathetic, like, she wanted to be like, "It's okay, honey," right? And instead, she really pissed me off because I'm like, "I am here to heal, and I am here to experience this world with other people, and I'm here to relate, and I'm also here to feel like I'm not the only one that's going through this, and by you telling me I have the worst story, now you just put me in a bucket that I didn't put myself in, and I'm kinda like, 'F you,' because, like, I
Yeah.
don't wanna be in that bucket, and, like, there
Yeah.
are many times I do and have, like, feel like the victim to this life experience because we didn't choose these outcomes, right? And, like, there's no level of, like, think positive and, like, manifesting culture that, like, some of that stuff is actually really I feel like I don't wanna throw out the word toxic because everyone calls everything toxic now, like, it's become a buzzword, but, like, it can be really, like, not, like healthy, I feel like, for someone who's grieving because it doesn't
Mhm.
validate the
Mhm.
real feelings that you're feeling underneath, of what you're experiencing. But yeah, I lost my dad when I was 11, and then similar to you, my dad was, like, the breadwinner of the family, so my mom was, like, a stay-at-home mom, they had 2 kids, and so when my dad passed away, I watched, like, my mom almost crumble, like, they had this story not a story, but, like, my mom was like, "That was my soulmate, it got ended too soon," and my mom had, like, an associate's degree, and this was the time of technology change, and so I was watching my mom, like, financially struggle and, like, try to take care of, like, this huge home, a boat that we ended up selling, and, like, the 2 kids, and, like, I just watched my mom go through so much struggle, and my mom taught me, like, never rely on another person again, and, like,
Wow.
man, come from, like, her, like, survival place, but
Yeah.
man, impacted relationships in the future of, like, "I don't need anything from you," like, "I don't need help from you," um, which I've learned how to balance that a little bit more, but yeah, similar to you, like, I watched people struggle after the loss of someone else, and, like, you I had to grow up very quickly too because as much as my mom was trying to, like, provide and be that source of stability so that, like, we'd have the home, emotionally, I feel like she was shut down. So, like, she was angry, she was sad. My mom grew up having, like, faith in religion, and for a while, my mom even, like, lost faith in that. And so, like, that's a big thing that can, like, break your spirit. And so from, like, an emotional perspective, I really feel like it was me and my sister. Like, we were the 2 that were like, "Alright, we're gonna do this." People would even tell us too, which, well, I think one of the things I learned is people during grief really try to say the best thing that they have, and a lot of times it does not land at all to, like, where
Yeah.
you are, and it makes you feel worse, and it makes you feel even more isolated and alone. Like, my sister and I grew up with the story, like, "Take care of your mother." You have to, like, be there
Mm.
for your mom, like, she's going through a hard time, but what that teaches you how to do as a kid is that, like, my mom matters more than me, but that's, like, a messed up relationship to a parent and a child, right? Like,
Yeah.
the child needs to know you're safe because of the parent, and you need to know you're more important at times than, like, the parent, right? So,
Mm.
I've had to, like, go through I've done many different kinds of therapy because 'cause I'm usually trying to better myself to
Sure.
create better impacts to people that I'm around. But I've definitely had to untangle the web of, like, taking care of adults that don't necessarily need it because they're adults, but, like, that's what I learned how to do in some ways.
Wow. It's wild.
Yeah.
But the parallels in that though are, I mean, yeah, it's very interesting to see like the parallels in it, of like, and I wonder if that's with a lot of people that like are going through this. Like, I wonder if like again, like I don't think we're alone. Like I bet you, but also and you said it earlier, but like your sister experienced it differently, and I remember like everyone experiences this can experience the same event differently, like 100%. Like what I experienced is totally different than what my sisters had experienced, right? It's like a totally, but like we experienced the same event, but it was a totally different experience for how they experienced it.
Yeah.
And those are things that we don't even think about. Like
Yeah.
your sister went through the same event, but she experienced it completely different.
Yeah, and, like, the recovery is different too. So,
Yeah.
like, my sister already was married, she had a home, and she had 2 kids, right? So there was this identity and there was this space outside of our family unit that was already established. So, I mean, I'm not a parent yet, but I can imagine when you have kids, they become, like, everything to you,
Yeah,
right? And it's
they
not
do.
that other people don't matter, but, like, they take up so much of your time and attention that, like, they become everything that it's not that it hit my sister any less because the depth of the relationship she had with my mom was there. It's just it was more, like, titrated in terms of how it was coming out, where I had moved back to upstate New York during the pandemic. So I wasn't living in my apartment in San Francisco. I wasn't working for the same company anymore. Like being in the family unit and the identity kind of like was my everything. And the value and the benefit of this was that I got to build my adult relationship to my mom. And like I got to be near her, I got to be with her because I was literally living in her house during the
Yeah.
pandemic.
Yeah.
This is when I eventually like a year later, I'll get hired at Peloton because I'm in New York. So then I start looking for New York based companies. But I really was able to gain so much in that relationship to her. But even in terms of our experiences, like this is gonna sound, like, traumatic because it was, but, like, my mom collapsed in my arms, and, like, I'm the one that had to do CPR, like, I'm the one that had to call 911, like, I'm the one that was, like, fighting with EMTs because instead of telling me how to keep my mom alive, they were asking me about COVID protocols and, like, "Is everyone in the home wearing a mask?" And I'm like, "I don't care if everyone's wearing a mask, my mom's not breathing, and I'm not sure what to do." And so, like, that also creates a very different, like, we'll call it trauma recovery experience for the 2 of us, and, like, my sister wasn't there for that, but, like, she was there for a different part of the journey because we both couldn't be in the room when we had to say goodbye to my mom because, again, COVID protocols where, like, you could only have 1 person there, and, like,
Sad.
that that was so, like I think it's, like, so messed up, and I understand, like, why we have these protocols, but in my mind, I'm like, if death is on the table, you make an exception because after, like, we lost my dad, something happened like, we became a tribe. Like, it was me, my mom, and my sister, and, like, there's something innate between the 3 of us that, like, you will go to bat for each other, like, you've just experienced trauma together, so, like,
Yeah.
there's something that's there. So when my mom was dying, I was able to, like, keep her alive. She made it to the hospital. They put her on a ventilator, and they said that she wouldn't be able to, like, make it more than, like, 6 minutes, but my mom actually lasted 6 hours. So, my sister was actually in the room with her for at least 5 hours, and I was in this waiting room. So, I'm, like, isolated, blocked off, just me, thinking this thing is going to, like, happen in 6 minutes, yet I am what feels like taken away from my tribe. And so,
Mm,
like, I end up having almost like a panic attack and getting upset because I'm like, I need to be with my people. I don't care what's gonna happen. Like, at the end of the day, we also have animal instincts. And I'm like, those are my people. Like, I will fight through doors. And I remember I called the nurse, and the nurse was like, I can't let you in there. Like, you can talk to your sister. And I don't know if the nurse had talked to my sister or what, but my sister comes out and she's like, Beck, like, you don't need to be in there. And I was like, it was this moment of like, do I trust what she's saying? Is she trying to just be the strong sibling to protect
mm,
me? Because she's tried to
yeah.
be that. And I didn't want her to have to carry that weight for the rest of our life together. That I'm like, do I trust her or do I not? And I'm like, I have to trust her. So
Mm,
like I ended up letting her go and like be in the room. But like that was a whole nother level of like things that are outside of your control that create that sense of isolation in terms of like the experience. But yeah, her sitting in that room for an additional 6 hours then changed her grief experience too. Um and I know that she's used the time to like really talk through her relationship with my mom during that
wow.
time. Yeah,
Wow.
really, it's interesting.
Heavy. I mean, it's heavy.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's heavy.
yeah. I guess it would be helpful probably to hear more of the overview so the pieces
Yeah.
will connect at some
Yeah.
point. Yeah, my dad died when I was 11, and that really, I feel like, impacted who I became as a human being. So, one of the things that I took with me after that is life is too short, and so that really prompted and propelled me to start making different decisions, where I grew up in a smaller town where a lot of people don't move out of the town, and I just knew that life is too short, so I used to just, like, not say yes to everything, but I was like, if someone invited me on an international trip, I'm going. Like, I wanted to experience New York City. Like, I wanted to just experience as much as I can because like life is short, right? And so I just would always have that mental framework. So I then lived the next at least like 20 years making decisions like this, which lead me to living in New York for 6 years, living in San Francisco for 5, like working for some really cool companies that I love, but always trying to bring like positivity to the world. Like I've worked in the beauty industry. Like that's the majority of like what my share is because I wanted to be able to, like, impact people positively, and I think that there was probably something in my psyche that's like, I know what it's like to go through pain, I know what it's like to be in hurt, that, like, if I can bring more, like, sunshine into the world or, like, if I can bring more confidence into the world, because there were times that I didn't have confidence, like, this would be great. It was super unexpected, I feel like, when my mom died when I was 30. My sister and I both were in agreement that we were like, we already lost the parent. Like, it was so shocking to our system because, like, you we would cling to her, right? Because she was, like, the last parent that was, like, alive, so we would almost, like, cling to her for things that we already thought we were like, "We already got our tragedy. Like, we already did this. Like, why do we get to do this again? Like, basically, F this," right? Like, we don't want this. But, and yeah, feeling alone, I think, is a huge part of the experience. But I am really grateful in this life that I end up with a sister who's like 18 months older than me because then at least it hasn't been perfect, I would say. We're different but very similar. So we're not always on the same page with each other, but no matter what, we won't give up on each other. So
I love that.
like
I love that.
yeah, we're we're fighters through the end because we
That
know how precious life can be.
it's
So I think
amazing.
grief teaches you is that like every moment matters and
Yeah.
it counts.
Yeah. I that is so true. It really is. And I don't I talked about this on the my second episode, which was, I don't know if you had listened to it, but it was I talk about like the shadow of my life. And that's so the shadow of my life is my dad. When my dad had died, he was 40. And and so ever since I was like probably 25, I was always, I don't know, it just like was like built into my mind of like, I only have until I'm 40. Like I just feel like for whatever reason, like I'm only ever gonna live till 40. And so this year turning 35, I was like, well, like my I don't feel like this anymore, but like if I still did, I would think to myself like I only have 40, or I only have 5 more years left. And so like I need to make that count. And I think maybe some part of me probably still believes that I'm only here till 40. Um, I hope not. But yeah, I mean, I think, a good thing to like maybe kind of talk about would be, what does it look like for you now to care? Like, what does it look like for you to carry this grief now, especially like at this stage of your life?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I feel like grief does not have like a formulaic plan like we talked about. And like it can be like all over the place in terms of your emotions. I feel like one of the best things the therapist said to me is that grief is like this. And I like this visual where there's moments in life that it's kind of going to be out here where you're not going to be as aware of it, and it's going to be there. And then there's gonna be these moments in life that it feels like it's closer and it gets sharper. And like when it's here, it's the sharpest. And she said, like, usually when it's the sharpest is when you're experiencing a new life event. So,
Mm,
like, you're gonna have this combination of life happening with your like grief circle, and the two of them sometimes are going to be really sharp together. And
yeah.
so that's kind of how I think of like grief now, is like I don't know sometimes when it's gonna happen, right? And I don't know when I need to be able to create more space for myself. I think that's the thing I've had to learn time and time again, is that, like, I may not respond to things the same way as other people, and that still makes it okay. And I have actually had people in my life look at me and tell me, like, "You talk about your mom a lot. Like, when are you gonna get over it?"
Oh my gosh.
That's I mean, that's not like, there's a way in which I think that can be impactful because someone doesn't wanna see you in pain, right? But then there's also the understanding of having a healthy relationship to grief and knowing, and that's what I eventually tell this person, is like, I'm like, "I don't think you understand the complexity of what it is to experience this," and I'm like, "I don't think that you understand what it's like to come to, like, a family function," and I'm like, "I don't have any expectations anyone's gonna ask me about my family." I'm like, "Because it's up to me to create the space in the room at the table because I know that relationship." Like, I was surrounded by people who have never met my family before,
Mhm.
but I'm like, would you of course, being around someone else's family, especially around the holidays, is gonna remind me about, like, what I have, and
Right.
there's some people who are very uncomfortable and can't create that space for you, which is why they're like, "I think it's time to get over it," and then through my own learning of, like, wait, like, I do have a healthy relationship with grief, like, I feel like my grief is here because I was loved unconditionally, and I had a relationship with someone that I love, and, like, this gets to exist, and so I think for me, the challenge now is to like, how do I not internalize? I think sometimes the judgments that I hear around me, and that like my path does get to look different. And like, it's not wrong just because someone else might be uncomfortable with the life experience that, like, one also didn't choose, like,
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
didn't choose. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too because I just had this conversation. Like, I had this amazing woman yesterday on the show. Her name is Lydia, and she's a grief therapist in Nashville. And she came on the show, and we were talking about this of like people that are around you that are trying to like, they feel like they're trying to help you, but they also don't know what it's, either they've never experienced grief, or they just simply don't have the emotional intelligence to understand like what it is that you're going through. And so they think that they're trying to be helpful, but they actually end up hurting you, um, and they don't even realize it. And I think that I do feel that that is something that we don't talk about is like there are individuals out there who just simply don't have the emotional intelligence in order to even have the conversation with you. And so they end up hurting, and then you're already dealing with the grief. And in that moment, like let's say it's at like a family event or a gathering, and then they say this, and you're like, "But you don't even understand what I'm going through," and because you don't have that emotional intelligence to have that, and now you've also now you've hurt me on top of the hurt that I already have, you know?
Yeah. So that's
So,
the part that, like,
that's
I've
so hard.
yeah, that's the part I've struggled with. Like, if you even have any ways of dealing with it, I would love to hear about it because what happens to like in that moment, I was able to like I had rage in the inside because I'm
Sure.
like the
Yeah.
one thing that like you don't ever do is tell someone to get over
Mhm.
someone that you love. Like that's not your claim in the relationship, right? So, like, I felt rage, but this was a person that I also loved and cared about. And so because of that, I'm like, I need to be able to have this conversation in like a more like diplomatic, understanding way, not through the emotion that I was like feeling. But to hold both, I think is in times in that moment, I feel like I crushed it. I was like, I was clear, I was organized in my thoughts, and I was like, I feel like I did us both. We're, I feel good
Yeah.
now,
Yeah, yeah.
but definitely been times where I'm overwhelmed and I really am in like the deep grief place. And then when someone says one of those things, like I collapse internally and then I'm pissed off that now I'm like, so now I have to like manage you on top of like me managing me. And like, where is the, here back to my trigger word, like support? Where's
Yeah.
the support? Right. So, like,
Yeah.
have you found any ways that you like think about that? Or like, does that not impact you as much? Maybe I'm just surrounded by controlling people who want me to feel good, but, like
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm trying to think back to it because I feel like mine's a little bit different. It's a little bit different in the sense that I never really had a lot of individuals around me. Like it sounds like you have like this a lot of individuals that would be around you, and which is really great. And I never feel like I ever really had that because, and maybe I did, but the way that I've positioned it in my mind is that I've been on my own since I was 17. So that's how
Okay.
I've positioned it in my head. Uh,
Yeah,
but like even now, I can speak of it like now. No one's ever come up to me and said like, "You need to get over it." I never had that moment. Thank God, because it would probably drive me crazy. And I'll probably do something very passive aggressive to hurt them back because that's how I would do it. But no, I mean now, like at like holidays or family events, a lot of it is just I think what I've done is I've tried to just kind of internalize it in the sense of like, let me just be present with where I am right now. And that's something that I really struggle with in general is just being present. But I would say though, like after having kids, it's actually made it maybe a little bit easier to kind of like not take the hurt and put it on the back burner, but kind of just say like, okay, like yes, that happened, and my parents are not here. They can't enjoy this moment with us at Christmas time or whatever it might be. But like I have my own family now, and I don't want I don't want my hurt to negatively affect the time I'm gonna have with them. And because what you said is that you and your sister have this mentality of like, how did you put it? Life is so. I'm gonna probably butcher, but you said like life is so precious, which it is. And I think if I can put the hurt on the back burner of my family's not here and I don't have anybody to enjoy this with, I can actually put on the front burner of like, but I'm here with my family is here with me now. I want to enjoy this and just be present with who I'm with.
yeah, that's so interesting, and I dream of the moment that I get there. So, like, I wanna get married and I wanna have kids, and, like, I want that unit, and what was interesting too is I definitely and, like, my last partner was choosing consciously, like, I wanna be with someone who has both their parents. I wanna
Right.
be with someone that has security and stability, and something that I used to say is just like, "I know with this person, like, if I passed away, my kids are gonna be taken care of." And,
Mm.
like, what an interesting thing to strategize when you're trying to find, like,
Yes.
the love of your life. It's like, I'm planning for a future family, and I'm planning doomsday for
Yeah.
myself for a
Mhm.
future family that hasn't existed yet. But because I feel like this is a potential reality that can exist, I don't want to act like it's not there. And what's interesting is the guy that I was in the relationship with, he has two parents. And like, this is where I get a lot of the learnings from of I'm looking at him being like, you have everything. And like that relationship really challenged me emotionally because I didn't realize that's the relationship that taught me I've been constantly putting myself at a deficit. And then when we broke up, it's not that the breakup didn't hurt. I mean, I still think I'm, like, in love with this person, like, he's impacted my life for the better for so
Yeah.
many reasons. But I was like, not that I'm good, because you don't break up with someone that you love and say that you're good, but, like, I feel like at times I walked away with more skills. Like,
Mm,
so while I was looking at him as like, he has all these physical things, right? Like, he's got both his parents. Like, financially, I feel like the kids would be okay. Like, he can provide. Like, he takes care of my dog so well. So, like, all of this is taken care of. Where I put myself as at a deficit is that I had not seen or had someone reflect back to me my capability, my ability
mm,
to communicate, my
mm,
ability to hold my emotions and my feelings. And like, so I feel like I was constantly comparing like apples and oranges, but I didn't even know I was doing that until the relationship ended. And I'm like, why did I put this person on a pedestal because of physically what they have? When
sure.
like emotionally, the thing that matters to me most is like, can we get through the tough times and like, can we get through conflict and like, can we be comfortable being ourselves and like that be okay? Because that seems to
Yeah.
be most important. So, grief, I think, has also driven some of my own decision making in relationships of like who I choose to be with. And then I also have friends who either like don't get along with their in laws that now I'm like, okay, maybe like we don't need both. Like
Yeah.
maybe like I'm opening up to the possibility of like
Mhm.
it doesn't have to look this specific way in order for me to have a good life.
That's understandable, 100%. And I mean, I can say that I do think about this a lot, and I hope that you don't ever experience this, but I feel like you will, right? Because of the same life experience. But um, like even now, and I talked about this before that my kids have one set of grandparents that love them very very much, but that love, I think about, I like to think about like that love could have been like double or triple. And so I can understand where somebody could think, I want to be with somebody who has both parents, but that like, but like, why? Because like, this is a living example of like, my kids will grow up with so much love, even though they don't have two sets of grandparents. They'll still have so much love, and there's so much stability in their life. So I
Right.
find that very interesting. But of course, like, you can't change the way that somebody, if that's the way that somebody feels and thinks, like, you can't obviously change that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, do you feel that like, did you ever feel that your identity was shaped at all around the loss as much as the love that you had?
Absolutely. I think after listening to your podcast, it made me really think about my relationship and identity to grief because grief helped me become who I am, right? Like without like the tragedy like that, I don't necessarily know if I would have been seeking out the things that I was, right? Like after like the loss of my dad and I'm thinking like life is too short, I like really jump into like learning more about like personal development as I get older. And like I become like a Gallup certified strengths coach and I end up becoming like a leadership coach. And like I believe in like the transformation of things. And so like I from that lens, I do think all of that was created because of trauma, but I don't think that it was, like, harmful, right? Like, I don't think it's harmful to think that life is too short. If that's running you and, like, you don't have a balance of it, then, like, yeah, it can become, like, not good for you. So for in some ways, I feel like I am who I am because of the loss of both of my parents. Like I have a unique perspective and an outlook on the world that not many people get to have, and I'm sitting in that position uniquely. Um, And at the same time, I very much never want to identify myself with just being a grief story because like I don't ever want people to just look at me like I'm like the victim of my life experience. And then
Mm.
but so I this is where I'm like self-empowerment and power versus like being the victim and acknowledging that like something happened, and I there's probably more for me to like discover there.
Yeah.
Because your podcast is the first time I really was asking myself like, do I still identify as someone who's grieving, like
Yeah. Yeah.
is this a part of my identity? And the answer is yes, it will be there for the rest of my life. But right now, I'm in something called parts work. Have you ever heard of internal family systems?
Oh, that sounds familiar, but I'm gonna say no. So maybe you can wanna explain it?
So, honestly, I've done talk therapy, like, what is it, like BCT, cognitive behavioral therapy. I've done a lot of, like, embodiment work. Like, I've tried a number of different things ex to experience some. It wasn't always to, like, solve grief, you know? But internal family systems, I can't remember the guy who created it, but he wrote a book and it's called No Bad Parts. And post my breakup, which started in January, I ended up finding this therapist who did parts work. And I've always wanted to do parts work. And it talks about like there's no bad parts and we're made up of a number of different parts. And so, like, my grieving part, right? Like the part that was abandoned, the part that like lost my family, like the part of me that's like chosen to move on regardless of the circumstances and like build that sense of resilience, that will always be there. But there's also the part of me that loves to play and loves to act like the world is still filled with endless possibilities and like
Yeah,
everything's
sure.
possible. And
Yeah.
so, what I like about this kind of therapy is that you get to talk about the part, you get to embrace the part, but you don't necessarily become the part. And
Interesting.
I definitely, some of my sessions has been learning how to witness the part versus becoming it and then acting through it because it's very easy to get upset and then like stay in that place and like struggle to like switch back. So
Mm,
I love parts work because it helps me create space for all of the pieces and not to just have to identify with one.
sure. I don't know if this is parts work, but I do know that, if I'm remembering correctly, when I did talk therapy, we did, like, a couple times we would do, she would ask me, uh like, to name a feeling that I was feeling about maybe like a past trauma, and my favorite is the emotions wheel. I actually keep that thing. I have a picture of it on my phone so that if I'm having a conversation with my wife, I can go in there and be like, "Oh, this is how I'm feeling right now." Because I'm not good with explaining how I feel. Like, I know what I'm feeling, but I have a hard time explaining to, like, what it is that I'm feeling. But I remember that she would ask me to think of, like, what I was feeling, but then she would ask me to identify, like, how old I was. I don't know if that's parts work or not, but if it is or if it isn't, but I remember, like, we would always go back, and I would be like, oh, I'm 10 years old, and I'm sitting on the steps of my aunt's house because my mom dropped us off so that she can go on a drinking binge, and that's who I am in this moment right now. And it's so interesting because I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and they were asking me, or maybe I had said something like, "I just feel mentally like I am still like 15 years old." Like I still feel like I'm just like a 15-year-old boy stuck in this 35-year-old man's body. And it hits me like all the time. Like when I'm with my kids, I'm like, I feel like I shouldn't be having kids right now. I'm 15 years old. But like that's how I feel emotionally, not mentally,
Yeah.
but like emotionally, I still feel like a 15
Yeah.
year old, you know?
I so get this because I just came back from like a Vegas trip with some friends. We were celebrating one of them turned 40, the other two are 37. So technically I'm like the youngest
Nice.
at 35, right?
Yes.
And so like we had like an amazing weekend. It was like super fun. But like I came out of that trip being like, when do we grow up?
Yeah.
Like when, like when
Yes.
do we grow up? Like what what is being, and this is what my plane thoughts are, right? So like I have this like 4.5 hour ride back from like the West Coast to the East Coast, and I'm like, so when do we grow up? And like,
Mhm.
you know, there wasn't, like, drama on this trip, but you when you travel with someone, you start to see more of their routine, and you start to see the places in which, like, they emotionally collapse to things, or, like, they
Mhm.
get frustrated, or they get uncomfortable being in unknown environments, and, like, you can see like, I saw parts of myself in each one of these people, and I'm like, "Do we just never grow up? Like, what's the
Yeah,
tea?" And
yeah,
then
yeah,
for
yeah,
me, my head, I was like, "Okay, how have I up until this point defined what being a grown up is?" Right? And so I'm like, oh, like this makes me think of like the marriage conversation I used to have with my friends. So when I was I so I guess when I get bored, I start to think about things and then I'm curious how other people experience it. So like
yeah.
marriage, right? The topic of marriage is so individualized to everyone. So I started calling my friends who are married and I was like, why did you choose to get married? And like just because I was curious, like some people are just like, "I thought this was my person, done." I had another one be like, "I wanted to have children with this person." Okay. Another, "This is my soulmate," or like, "We were life partners." And you're like, "Oh, like it really is such an individual decision." But with
Yeah,
the grown up thing, I was like, "Oh, like I feel like this is one of those things again where it's like truly what you create of it." And
yeah.
for me, it was when I'm married and I have kids, then I'll see myself as an adult. But
So
what's so
interesting.
Right, so, like, now I'm giving myself mile markers that, like, if I haven't hit these 2 things, then I can't see myself as an adult. Yet,
Mm,
I live in a beautiful apartment building, I drive a beautiful car, I've been taking care of myself for many years. Like, it I'm not like, struggling to take care of myself, but yet I can't see myself, like, as an adult, like, what is
sure.
occurring?
Yeah.
And so, because of this, like, inquisitive nature, I start talking to friends about it, and, like, my girlfriend that was on the trip, we rode home together, I was like, "What do you think being an adult is?" And her response was so good.
Yeah.
She was, "It's having self-awareness. It's being able to articulate how you feel." She's like, "It's knowing that you have an impact on the surroundings that you have." It's
Mm,
like taking emotional responsibility for your impact, and I was like, "God, that's so good."
that is good.
Um, but, like, yeah, like, it's when I talked to my stepdad about it too, he's a great, like, philosophical thinker too. He was just like, You're an adult, but you're experiencing moments in which you're growing." And
Mm,
that really, like, related to me and connected with me that I'm like, "Got it. I can see myself as the adult now." And the adult is in the parts work. So to, like, jump back to the parts work, like, there's a self energy. A lot of times what we ended up doing is if there was a part that came up, they call them all these things. There's like protector parts or like firefighters or and these show up in stressful times and they're strategies that we created typically from the past that feel like a part of our personality that we may or may not see. And
mm,
when they show up, my therapist is usually like, okay, so this is like one of your protector parts coming out. Can you tell me how old she is? And
mm.
that's usually so we
Okay.
create these parts at a certain time, typically based off survival or necessity. And a big part of the work her and I are doing is um like discomfort tolerance. So like being able to be with that part and not making it wrong and knowing that
Sure.
it was there for a really good reason and like also not judging it, but giving it the space to like say whatever it needs to say that didn't have that space then.
Mm,
And then from there, what's usually really interesting is like not that I feel like a different person, but I feel like I end up walking out like a different person because I feel more integrated to that piece. Like I'm not fighting
yeah,
with that
yeah.
anymore.
That's so interesting. I know I definitely have never done parts work.
Yeah.
I now that you're explaining, I feel like I have heard it. Um, but I can see how not even in this situation with parents that like loss of parents, but I feel like with any kind of grief, like that could have such an impact on somebody.
Yeah,
Wow.
because it's so easy, I think, to make grief your identity. And I want to be mindful if anyone like listens to this part, like wherever you are, there you are, and that's perfect, right? Like you're not intended to be any further or you're not behind or anything like that, right? So like there is no race through any of these things. And I think what's been helpful for me is to be able to establish an identity that is outside of grief. And I was struggling with that for a while after the loss of my mom because I was living in her home. I was like living with my stepdad, which was her partner. So I'm constantly reminded of that experience. And it wasn't until I met the boyfriend that it's almost like I got transported into a different reality. And I realized, "Oh my god, I don't have to stay in this stuff." And
Yeah.
he almost became like to me at the time, I'm like, "You're like a beacon of light for me," because he gave me a break from that part, and, like, I've never had language to communicate that until, like, this past year to see that, like, "Oh, that's what that was." Like, I had to create an identity outside of this, but a lot of times you don't know who to become, especially when it's the loss of your parents, because parents to me provide directionality that now when you've lost the parent, it's so easy, in my opinion, to, like, collapse in the thought of, like, "I don't know what to do. I
Mhm.
don't have the answers. Like, you need to tell me what to do. Like, I'm not sure." Right? And, like, that is so valid and, like, it's real, and I did this in a therapy session, being able to recognize that, be with that, and then there's a adult self part who gets to say, "Okay, with the resources we do have, what can we do?" It may
Mm.
not look like calling the parent, but you got a kick-ass group of women that you can
Yeah.
call that wanna
Yeah.
hear what's got going on, or, like, you have a sister, and so, like, it might not look the way that you want it to, but it doesn't mean that it's still not there, and I am constantly challenged by that, remembering that I actually have more than I do, because in those grief moments and, when you feel isolated and alone, you don't think you have anything, and you don't think you have anyone, and, like, those are the moments you're, like, waiting for someone to, like, reach out and, like, touch your heart and ask you, like, "How are you doing?" And then for me, I get pissed off no one's checking in on me,
Yeah.
right? But, like,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
family is also relating to me as an adult, being like, if she needs something from me, she's gonna
Mhm.
call me. They're not
Sure.
relating to me from, like, the grief version. So it's been an interesting journey to be in that energy and then be like, "All of this is valid and this is here, and, like, I can give myself time and space for this, and I can text them and be like, 'Yo, can you call me? Can you check in on me? Like, I need, like, extra love right now.'"
Yeah, I think I would agree though. Well, 2 things I wanted to say was, 1, your stepfather, very stoic of him. That's number 1.
Yes. He's so good.
Very stoic, and I love that. But, the other thing too would be, yes, like, we are, like, kinda talking about, like, the "when am I gonna grow up" thing.
Yeah,
That makes so much sense to me of like, you're grown up when when you can handle your emotions like a grown up person would. And the biggest thing that I'm still learning this thing is with the people that we love the most and that we are around the most is, um, we should just be able to tell people what it is that we need. Right? Like, why can't, but why do we feel like we can't just tell people what like what we need? If I need more love from somebody, I should have no problem feeling like I can go to that person and say, "I just really need some extra love right now." Like, what a grown up thing to do. Uh, and then, of course, on the opposite side of that would be if that person is also a grown up, they would also be able to relate back and say, "You're right. Like, what does that look like for you? What does that love? What kind of love do you need right now? Do you need a hug? Do you need me to sit down and talk? What do you need?" Right? And I think I'm still learning that a lot now with the people that I'm the closest with my wife, with my best friend. We spend so much time together, and it's like I'm afraid. And maybe this has a lot to do with past rejection, past like abandonment of like, well, I'm afraid if I tell you what I need, you're going to think that I'm too clingy or that I'm too needy, and then you're gonna like go away.
yeah,
And that is so real. And I think that that also, at least for me, ties into my grief of like me thinking, and the way I would tie this back in is, when I lived with my grandparents. So these are my grandparents, and I felt like I was a burden to them.
yeah,
I remember when I lived with them, if I wanted to go get like a piece of bread or something, like I grew up, I'm Italian, so I grew up with like these Italian these Italian grandparents. But if I needed something, I would say, "Hey, can I go in the fridge and get something?" And they're like, "Yes, like you're my grandson and you live here." But it was like this, like, I just felt like maybe I was bothering them, and then I couldn't just, like, ask them for something, and I feel like that has really carried through with
yeah,
the grief, and then even, like, 20 something years later, I still will ask people, like, that I'm so close with, like, "Hey, can I go in your fridge and grab something?" And I don't know if maybe it's a respect thing or maybe it's just like a I don't wanna be a burden to somebody is the one thing that I can, like, leave with that on that part of the conversation is I still feel like I'm a burden to people, like, even to my wife and my children, like, I'm a burden to them, but in reality, like, it is so far from that.
Mhm. I I don't wanna put you in a box, but I I think there's a double whammy here also too being a man in 2025.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, hearing your life experience, and you can correct any of the pieces that I'm missing here. Like, if you're 15 years old and you're losing the man of the house, right? Like, this person that you relied on, you become it, right? You feel the space of what you didn't have because you had to. And so now that's ingrained in thinking, well, as I go through life, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to take care of myself. So your first thought is not going to be, how can someone help me? And then men, I think, are prized a lot of times today by like, well, what can you provide me? And what can you give me? And like,
yeah,
being strong and like being stoic and like a man who has emotions and feelings. Like, oh my gosh, like, and it's so interesting because all of those things I think like limit the space for what you could potentially think is acceptable of like what to share. And you've already censored yourself before you've even gotten there. And what I can say from being in a relationship to a man who didn't share his feelings, that I was constantly like, well, tell me how you feel. What's going on? And he's like, I don't operate this way. And like I might operate through the language of feelings and like he does not. I always wanted, I think one of the biggest detriments in our relationship is that I wanted to know what was going on. And it's not because I didn't think he could handle it. He's been handling it the entire time, but like you now have a partner. So like trust that I'm strong,
yeah,
trust that I got you, trust that I can hear you. And like all of that takes practice, right? Like that's hella vulnerability. And that's like the little boy inside being like, this is the most dangerous shit I've ever done in my
yeah,
life because
yeah,
like it's another level of dependency, right? And like I I know for me, like sometimes this is why I wonder if I'm single, like I don't want to depend on anyone. Like I know I don't have to, I know I don't need to. So like why are you here? Right? And like that's not like got it. I'm strong and capable, but, like, that's not the energy that I wanna bring into, like, a loving family or, like, a partnership,
mhm,
right?
yeah, 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 and I was gonna ask too is, what about now? Like, what does your support system look like today?
I feel like it changes. So that's something that's really been interesting because in my mind, I wanna know who my people are, and then I wanna be able to go to them whenever I need them, and life has showed me that like we all have different needs and availabilities at different times. And so because of that, I think that it creates a different environment around me. Like and it doesn't make these friends like any less, but like I'm thinking of one of my friends in upstate New York and like if I called her tomorrow and I was like I need you to fly down here, like she would do it. But she's also pregnant with her second child. And like she's experiencing what it's like to be a mom to a toddler while also in pregnancy. So like it's not that I love her any less, but like sorry, love, like, you're not gonna be my first phone call because of, like, everything that you got going on. But then because of that, there's a bunch of women that, like, I live around who have more, like, physical availability, potentially even a little bit more emotional availability. So, I've had to begin to get comfortable with the idea that, like, support might look different and, like, it might come from different places, and that's really tough for me when, like, I wanna feel like I'm supported and I don't wanna think about it and, like, that's it. But that's
Yeah,
been a practice for me.
yeah,
Um,
no, that's really good.
yeah.
What would you say, like, and just I wanted to shift a little bit is like, what is something that you feel that your grief has taught you? Do you feel like you're learning anything with your grief, like, from your grief?
Gosh, I learn all the time. Um, the positive component here is that, like, I feel like I'm unique. Like, I don't think many people get to walk around the world and say, like, "I've lost both my parents by 30," and, like, that's it's not a badge of honor, and you become a version of yourself that you would never become. And you have to learn to relate to yourself so differently in order to manage all of the emotions that come with that experience. That I feel like you become a better human being. You have a greater capacity for life, which to me means you have a greater capacity to love. And I think that my sister and I talk about this sometimes. We're like, if you have the ability to experience one extreme, you have the capacity to experience the opposite. And
Sure.
so, like, I don't know if we just say that because it's like a coping strategy, but like I feel like because of that experience, I get to experience more love than the average person might not because I've had to become deeper within myself than other people have ever had to go. So, that to me, I think is like it's not a double-edged sword, but I've had to learn how to relate better, which is how I am not scared or uncomfortable sending, like, you a message on Instagram being like, "I
Sure, yeah.
see here's all of the things you said that I've had thoughts about," right?
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
someone might experience that and, like, not reach out.
Wow. That's that's really good because I feel like I'm not there. I feel like I'm not there yet.
I wanna hear yours.
Yeah, no, um, what is something that grief has taught me? I think, oh man,
That's a tough one.
it's a tough one because I'm trying to think of like, grief at 15 and at 26 is a little bit different than it is at like 35 but it's not. I think it looks different because your emotional intelligence is a little bit different, but I don't know. I think like the biggest thing that grief has taught me is that, um, I mean, I don't know if there's something it's taught me. It's something that I guess maybe it is. I mean, I'm using grief to like really propel me to where I really want to be. And I'm just I've always used that as like, I guess almost like a crutch of like, well, I don't have anything else to fall back on. So like I have to pick up everything and I need to just do the thing that is going to make me be what I want to be. And maybe that is the lesson of like, in a weird way, grief can teach you how to like pick up your life and get going. But also though, like, I was gonna I forgot what it was I wanted to ask you. I'm trying to remember what it was now. I thought it was a really good question too. Darn.
Okay, come back to you.
Yeah, but no, I don't know. You know, Yeah, I don't know. That's such a good question. But it's hard to answer in a way,
No.
right? Like it feels hard to answer.
Yeah,
I I think like my dad, and I had said this before, like my dad always told me, I want you to use your head and not your hands. And I think like that's not grief, but that's like I don't know, it's tied to my grief of, um and it's so true because I'm like the least handyman person in the world. And like I can barely do anything with my hands. And I attribute that to maybe me taking it so literal that my dad is like, use your head, not your hands to make a living. Like he did, I've come from a family of contractors, and like I can barely like do anything with my hands. But now like I use my head to like help others, like in like a corporate workspace of like I build things with my mind, with my head, and I'm using like my grief to kind of like help propel that. So I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know.
that's That's really meaningful because when I heard that in the first episode, and I think I listened to like half of the second one, so I have to finish that one. When I heard that phrase, that validated to me like my thoughts matter. So I think sometimes, like, as much as I'm willing to share, I usually get to share information that's behind a company.
Mm,
So I'm comfortable communicating and I'm comfortable doing these things to be in the spotlight, but it's not my material. So,
yeah.
like, when you asked me to do this, this was a part of me that, like, there's a lot of people at work who don't even know I have this life experience.
Mm.
It it's just not the conversations we're having, or it's not to the level of depth that we, like, understand. So when I heard you say that, like, your head versus, like, your hands, I was like, "Oh my god," like, the way that I think matters, and, like, not
Sure.
only that, I have the ability to, like, influence other people for the better just because of the way that I think. And for the first time, it actually made me feel like my story matters and that I'm not a burden.
Right.
So, like, because I always thought that like sharing these stories is going to bring people down. And like, you're showing me the opposite. Like, you're literally showing me the opposite. So I'm like, there's something here for me to gain.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're doing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Because again, it's not something I would normally do, and a lot of people have told me that. Like, it was interesting. I started it, and it like happened like overnight, and I started posting on Instagram. But my biggest network comes from, and again, this is so interesting because my biggest network comes from like LinkedIn. It comes from the people that I've learned through like corporate America, and like just like through work. And it's also very interesting because in the past, um, and I'm sure you've probably been in this situation. In the past, people would say, uh, like, they would say something like, "Oh, do you still have family up in New York?" And I would say, I'd say, "Oh, yeah," or like, "Yeah, no, I don't." I remember this one situation. Somebody had asked me. I was in an elevator with them, and they were a coworker, and I think we got back from like a holiday or something, and they said, "Do your parents still live in New York?" And I laugh at this because it's so funny, and I apologize if they ever listen to this. I apologize, but I said straight face. I said, "No, they live in Florida." Because like in my mind it was like Florida is where people go to die. Again, like, which is like, because like that's what it used to be, right? Like people would like, they would fly down to Florida, they would retire, and then they would like die. And in my mind I had put my parents in Florida. And so, but it was like one of those things of like, like, what do I say in that? Like, what am I supposed to say? Like,
Yeah.
no, I'm in the elevator. Like, no, my parents don't live in Florida. They're both dead. Like, but like, what are you supposed to say to that? Like, and like passing an elevator, like it's such a weird thing. And so I'm like, oh no, they live in Florida. But now, like, and I don't know if this is because of it's definitely not because of the podcast, but what's definitely led me to want to do this project is like people will ask me now, if I meet like parents of like that my daughter goes to school, if I meet their parents or something, they might it might come up in like conversation, and I have no problem now saying, no, both of my parents passed away. Like my dad passed away when I was 15, and my mom passed away when I was 26. And like I have no problem sharing that now. And a lot of people will be like, oh, that's so sad. I'm like, no, like, yes, thank you for like your sympathy, but also like, no, I don't. Like, I'm okay. Like, I'm good. Because I can look back now and be like, look at like what I've built in my life. It's not so sad because I feel like my parents would be very proud of like what my life has become. So it's I was able to like mentally do mental gymnastics on this of like, uh, I no longer need to like find it to be an awkward thing to talk about my dead parents, where I could say, yes, but my parents are passed away, but like this is what I've been able to do with my life, and I would think that they'd be pretty proud of that.
Yeah, I love the confidence that you have. I feel like I ran into this like a couple weeks ago and like was so awkward turtle because like I like there's like a dog park and like there's a group of people who like meet with the dogs. And so I was in there with my dog and they're like all talking about like Father's Day and what they're about to do for like Father's Day and stuff, right? And so like I'm I'm staying quiet not because I'm hiding anything, but just because I don't have anything to like contribute, right? And so then like
Sure.
they're
Yeah.
like, what's everyone doing? Like, what's the weekend look like, right? And I'm like, a number of people have shared, and then I found myself being like, okay, I my thing is usually like I don't want to be the buzzkill, right? Like I don't want
Sure.
to bring the
Sure.
energy down. I guess I don't want to repeat that experience with that woman who just felt bad for me the whole time. Like I
Right.
don't,
Right.
especially when you're having a good day and you're like, I'm crushing it. Like you don't
Yeah.
want someone to be like so sad, but like you appreciate it at the same time. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
shared, and then I was like, so I'm like not trying to be a buzzkill. I'm like, both my parents are like deceased. And like it just got quiet. And I'm like, "Eh," like this is like what I was like trying to avoid.
Yeah.
And it was
Sure.
like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, thank you so much. Right. And like usually I try to just like change the conversation, be like, but like, okay, you guys are like going on the boat this weekend, right? Like I it's like I don't want that attention for some reason.
That's
So
totally
like,
fair. That's totally
yeah.
fair. Yeah. No, and I think that's 100% fair. And I think too, like anybody that's listening, I feel like that this experience is a little is definitely different, right? Because if my parent had just passed away like last week, I would feel much different than I feel now, like, 20 years out, being like, well, like my parents passed away when I like at this time of my life and at this time of my life, versus like, well, my dad just passed away last week. Like that would be that like buzzkill for sure, buzzkill on a weekend plan conversation. Like, well, I just got back from the funeral, so that's a buzzkill. And so I can imagine like anybody who's listening to the show, like although you're not buzzkilling anybody, but I think what I would want someone to like hear from us the way that we're talking about is like over time we're able to, it's not even coping, it's more of like an introspective thing of that we can look at it back at and say like, yes, that happened to me and that sucks and that is part of my life that is just really sad, and yes, it might be a bummer, but also now I can use it as like a way to propel a conversation, or propel like the things in my life. So I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure that that would relate with anybody, whether it's been 10 years or it's been 10 days, you know?
S And you're making me relook at my own relationship to this of, like, why do I think that bringing that up is a buzzkill when, like, there's a reality to my life experience and there's a reality to theirs, right? And, like,
Yeah.
that's it, right? There
Yeah.
doesn't have to be more meaning that, like, I'm giving it, and they both can sit side by side. So you're making me think about that. Thanks for that one.
Well, yeah, you're welcome. Just like thinking about it, but like, what do you want people listening, especially someone or any of those that are still like deep in it? I know that you're a little far removed from like
Yeah.
your mom's death, but like those that are still in it and those that are listening, like, what is something that you'd want them to know?
Yeah, I'd want them to know that, like, help is there. Like, even when you don't feel like it's there, and even when you don't think that it's there, like, help is truly there. And, like, help can take different forms, right? Help can be as simple as writing a journal to sometimes taking a nap because you're overwhelmed emotionally, to calling a friend, or for me, it was, like, actually getting a pet. Like, once I had something that I was responsible for and kind of outside of myself, I got to stop focusing on everything that was happening inside. It can be like a grief group. Like, there's so many ways that like help and support can exist. I think the hardest part is like being open to thinking that it's there. And I can like promise 1,000% it's there in so many unexpected ways if you will allow it to meet you. And even if you just put 10% into looking. So that's the one thing. The second thing I would say is like share your story. And, like, I don't wanna be, like, hypocritical when I say it, but, share the story because the way that people are gonna relate to you is through the story. So, like, this is my own takeaway from all of this too, like, if we keep that hidden, we're doing better than what's currently happening in society of acting like we live in an Instagram, TikTok culture where everything's beautiful, and, like,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that's as much as that is parts and, like, real in some ways, it's also very unreal in other ways that share. Like, we need to be able to share these things. You sharing with me made me feel like there's a huge part of me that now I don't have to feel alone, and this is even, like, years later of experiencing grief, right? That, like, if there's someone else who, like, has been thinking about, "Should I go? Should I not? Should I reach out?" Yes. Like, the answer is yes every single time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say?
I mean, there's a million things I would want to say. Yeah. Right. That's why I started this show.
Yeah.
Um, I think the biggest one for me is going to be like your story and your feelings are valid and they matter and they're real. Because I know for like the longest time myself, I took what happened at 15 and literally put it in a box and shoved it under my bed, and it just like sat there and collected dust for decades. And like to the point where I never talked about my dad, which is so sad because like what a horrible way to honor somebody who was literally my best friend. and even though we didn't get to spend as much time as I had wanted would have wanted to, like, made such an impact on my life, and even just, like, the smallest things that he would say. So I think, like, for me, anybody that's listening, like, your story matters so much more than you think. And it's never going to be easy when you first start to talk about it. It's never easy. Taking the box out from under the bed and opening it up, and like you're sifting through like the photos or the memories, like those things will always be hard and they'll always be sad. But like for me, over time, it's not that it's ever grown less sad. It's just grown easier to talk about. Um, and yeah, like I still keep a and this is I don't even think this is weird, so I'm gonna share it. But like my dad was a contractor, and he kept like a it was like a leather binder that zips up, and that's the only thing I have left of my dad is this little binder, and it's got like his like daily like things that he was gonna do. It's like a little like not a journal, but it was like a little calendar. And so I have this, and I can see his handwriting, and in there are just like old birthday cards that I had and it's so funny. This is so funny because I save birthday cards like as if like I need to save a $6 birthday card from somebody. But I think something has just triggered in my mind of like, I should save that birthday card. And I think it goes back to like, I saved like not all of my dad's birthday cards, but like when I was 14, 15, I have birthday cards of from my dad. And I just like any of my grandparents, like I keep birthday cards from my grandparents, and they're gone. So yeah, I don't know. Like I would that's what I would say, but also like take the box out, open up the things, grieve over the loss. Because I think it will only help you be stronger, and it's only gonna help you propel yourself to where you want to be 6 months from now, a year from now. So that's what I would say. Yeah, and then this is gonna be a this is a good one. It's a hard one. Uh, so I apologize ahead of time, but if you could say something to your mom or dad right now, what would it be?
So I heard this in one of your the last podcast I heard, like, if you had 5 more minutes with your parents, I was in
Yeah.
my car, bawled my eyes out, just bawled.
Oh, it's
Like, it was
real though. Like that's so real though.
like, I just bawled my eyes out, and, I will answer your question, but my experience in hearing that was, like, so much sadness because I never even imagined that reality.
Mhm.
So, like, like, my brain has never even gone there, and, the first thing that came to mind when I heard you say that, I would just be there. I would take it all in. Them, who they are, the way that they speak, I would just be there. Um, and then it started to evolve of, like, my mom, I would tell her, like, "I'm obsessed with you. Like, you taught me to be, like, such a powerful woman, and, like, you taught me how to take care of myself, and, like, just badass woman," right? Like, she's got her flaws, don't get me wrong, like, bull in a china closet. She's, like, got her flaws, but, like, I see the method of the madness later on in life. And then what was interesting is for my dad, I got scared and I felt anxiety. And I felt like I don't know what to say because I don't know who you are. And I sat with that for like 3 days
Mm,
thinking about this is so interesting. My mom has this like I know all these things that I'd say, but it really was because I I don't always remember who my dad is. And so like I don't have that like peace. But thinking about it today, I would tell my mom like, thank you. Like I feel like my mom like she just taught me almost everything that I know. And like I'm so like I have hard times, don't get me wrong. I was super stressed out today about work before I even got here. But with that said, I have such a level of gratitude for the things that I get to experience in this life that sometimes I don't think everyone gets to experience the world the way that I do. And like, that's the stuff that keeps me going. To my dad, I think I'd be like, tell me about yourself. Like,
mm,
tell me about who
wow.
you are. Like, tell me what you love and tell me what you don't like. And like, what's your favorite like ice cream flavor? And like, I don't want to hear it from my mom. I don't want to hear it through my sister. I don't want to hear it through anyone else's voice. I want to like hear his voice and I want to know who he is through his lens. That's like, if I had 5 minutes, I'd be like, let's go.
Yeah. 20 questions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What about
I love that. No, I love that, Becca. Yeah, I love that, and it's what I was gonna say was, it's such an interesting question to ask somebody of like, what would you say? But like, you said it, and I said it, and I wonder if other people would say the same thing of like, do I even need to say anything? Like, can I just sit here with you for 5 minutes? I mean, that makes me emotional even thinking about it right now of like, do I even have to say anything? Could I just sit here with you and just be with you for just 5 more minutes? Um, yeah, I mean, that makes me even emotional even to think about now. So, I mean, what would I say? And I talked about this on a different episode, but yeah, like my my dad, 5 minutes, I probably I don't know, we were huge Yankee fans. He used to take me every year for my birthday, and I love that memory. I don't know, I probably would just talk about, like, sports with him maybe, yeah, maybe. But it would have to be like I said before, it would have to be, like, at the airport overlook that we used to go to. He used to take me when I was a kid, like, I'd have to be there staring out a window, watching planes come in, and just have, like, a father-son conversation with him. That would have to be that. And then my mom, yeah, like, kinda the same thing with you with your dad, though, like, I was a mama's boy growing up, but I never really knew her, and I only knew her until I was, like, 11 whenever they got divorced, and so, like, a lot of those memories are just completely blocked with, like, her being an alcoholic or maybe going out and doing drugs or whatever, so, like, that's kinda blocked there, but, yeah, I think it would just I think for her, it would just be, like, um I wonder if maybe she would apologize. I like to think maybe she would sit there and be, like, so apologetic, like, "I'm so sorry that I wasn't the mom that you needed." Maybe, I don't know, and then I feel like if that was what it was, I would just sit there and just say, like, "It's okay, like, there's nothing to apologize, like, let's just start over, like, let's just start over. 5 minutes, we've got 5 minutes left, let's start over." I don't know, and then in 5 minutes, she passes away, and then it's like it was a fresh start, right? Like I met her for 5 minutes, we met each other for the first time, and yeah, that would be how I'd wanna remember her after that for sure.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. When I thought about this exercise, the word that came to mind for me is that I'd linger. Like,
Mm,
I'd linger longer.
wow.
So, like, after I thought about that, I started to, like, approach life a little bit more like, what if I lingered, right? Like, re just lingered in the experience more, whatever that is, because I know in today's world, we're so quick to get to the next thing. We have like the agenda. We're going to do this. Everything is so time bound, or like there's a lot of responsibilities outside of ourselves. We're thinking about the next step. Like we're thinking about what we need to do. But the word that I sat with for 3 days was like linger. And I
Uh-huh.
changed my behavior through that because in moments that I would easily just be like, okay, so our conversation's done, like wrapping up good. I just like stayed there. I didn't say anything and I just waited. And, like, it creates such a different kind of presence.
Yeah, I love that. I actually think I'm gonna take that with me because, I love that word and I love that thought, and you're so right, like, we're so time bound, like, I'm already thinking of I mean, we're recording this now at 6:45 on the East Coast, and I'm already thinking like, well, we still have to eat dinner. My I have to put my daughter Willow to bed. We'll do that in a little bit, and then I have a men's group that I join on Thursdays. So like I have that, and then after that, my wife will be getting done putting our 6-month-old down, and then in 5 minutes after that, she's probably gonna wake up because she's a baby, and I'll have to go in and I'll have to put her to bed again, and then I have to brush my teeth, and then I have to go to sleep, and then I have to get up tomorrow, and it's Friday, and so like everything is so time bound, and if anything that I've learned from this from you, Becca, on this, and I will take this with me, I truly mean this, is linger because we talked about how I had mentioned, I have such a hard time being present. It's such a hard thing because my mind is always thinking about the next thing, but it makes me want to linger with the time with the ones that I love the most. Instead of it like things just like ending abruptly. If you're with your friends and you love your friends and you're like, okay, gotta go to bed, gotta put the kids down. I'd rather just like let's just linger for like 5 minutes in the foyer and just talk. Like let's just linger. Because I don't know I don't know what's gonna happen after this moment. Like I could get into a car and I could die in the car. And like I would rather my last moments with somebody be a lingering moment versus an abrupt ending. I'm gonna take that with me. I'm gonna sit with that. That's an emotional word for sure. Wow. Yeah.
Linger.
Wow.
I also tell you, first, you told me multiple times you don't think that you're present, but, like, there's no possible way you could have this conversation with me if you weren't present. Or, like, there's no way that you could respond to, like, my Instagram back with such a level of intention and depth if you weren't present. So I
Nice.
wanna tell you to, like, let go of that one because, like, you are very present. I have met people who are not present at all, and, like,
That's so
you are
interesting.
very present. You are
Okay.
very present.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. That I
Yeah,
would never have thought that, but thank you. I really appreciate that.
for
Um,
sure.
any last thoughts do you have?
I just think thank you.
Oh, you're
Thank you
welcome.
for being
Thank you.
I see you as someone who's, like, leading the charge emotionally for, like, this is gonna sound really big, but, like, society to have a conversation about grief in a way that makes everyone feel less alone and isn't stuck in I don't wanna say, like I went through a ton of trauma with my mom, but, like, the trauma narrative, right? And, like, I feel what's really cool about your podcast is that it has the ability to relate in a way without the extra embellishment of emotions, and that is not to say what people are feeling is not valid, because it 100% is, but I think, like, what came through for me is a sense of presence, sturdiness, and, like, an ability to be myself with my own life experience. So, like, through your example, I felt like I got to be more of me, and so I think that's really important, and what I hope is that if I had that experience with you, that there's more people who have that experience with you.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Because yeah, I wouldn't have thought that, but yeah, I I want this and my goal is always to have this be just like a raw conversation. Like if someone cries on the show, like you said, I'm gonna cry on the show. And I was like, okay, like then come cry on the show. Like if like
Yeah.
because like if that's what somebody needs, like if they're telling a story, like that's real. And if they come on the show and they cry on the show, like okay, like that's okay. Like this is just I'm just here to have a raw conversation with other people that have lived this did the same thing that I've lived. And if it leads to tears, then it leads to tears. At least I know that it was like a raw conversation that we had. It was like truthful, it was honest, and it was real. But yeah, I totally agree and you know, I totally agree with that sentiment. So thank you. And thank you for being here. Thank you for like reaching out to me. Thank you for trusting me with this part of your story. I know that it's gonna sit with so many people in like the best kind of way. My goal is like it has always just been like if just 5 people listened to this episode and got something out of it, like I would feel that like this was a successful project. Like if and even if it was 5 people that listened to it, I would just feel that like we made a difference talking about this in a really real and open way. So for anybody that's out there, like if you're listening and you're carrying grief in any way, like you are not alone in any way. Whether you lost them last month or you lost them maybe 20 years ago, like it still matters. And it will always matter. So thank you so much, Becca, for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for this.
Yeah, of course.